What's going on, Kayfabe? 16 in the room already, man, waiting for us, dude. So I'm just setting up some monitors and things. We'll get busy in a minute or two. All right, we're back.
Yeah, how's that look? Yeah, how's that look? Yeah, how's that look?
All right, we promise that will stop now. Sounds good enough. Actually, I got to see how I sound. I do. I'm further away from the microphone. Sounds good.
How does it sound whenever I'm sipping tea?
Yeah, right. All right, I have my stacks of comics that we're going to show off, and as you guys can see, this is a pretty good issue. Another one of those jam-packed gimmicks.
This year, too, has been strong. Year 3.
I'm just making sure that it wasn't a still screen that we were looking at there.
Yeah, I think these issues have been universally strong. This feels like all the excitement I expected to get into with the 90s whenever we started looking at Wizards, it feels like we're at that moment.
I'm getting more and more stoked for the issues that are more familiar to me. You know, we're going to be recording, what, issue 34 or something more? 33?
It's coming up soon. Yeah, I think that's about right. 33 sounds right. And it's funny because I will be phasing out of the Wizards that I bought as you phase in, which will be interesting.
It is funny how that works.
It's like passing the baton.
It's kind of perfect. Shit. Kayfabers, you ready to go through this issue with us? I'm ready whenever you are, Jimmy.
All right. Welcome to Cartoonist Kayfabe. This is Wizard number 28, December 1993, and my name is Jim Rugg.
Ed Piscor here, riding shotgun. December 93. I was a boy of 11 years old, I believe.
Puts it into context, Ed. You were probably watching more Simpsons than you were reading Wizard magazine.
And playing more video games and playing with toys. Look at that, a trifold cover. Is that what you would call that?
I would, and I believe it's the first one. This is glorious, and it's really a departure from everything that we have seen so far in Wizard magazine. This feels like the biggest stretch. Either Garib is either feeling it or getting nervous and trying to expand or something. But this feels like a chance. Obviously, Simpsons huge at the time. It's amazing to me that we're going back to Wizard, and it's like Simpsons at this point we're a few years in, like top of the world.
Sure.
And it's still, 25 years ago.
Garib's a capitalist, man. So once Matt Groening starts Bongo Comics up, it seems perfectly in line for the guy to give Bart Simpson some cover treatment, man.
It's a good matchup, and one thing I'll note, and you're not going to see all of this at home, we'll do a little bit of sliding this. This massive cover actually works either direction, which is already showing, I think, Bongo and Simpsons and Groening. Everything that makes Simpsons popular, I feel like, are on display in this cover. It's creative, it's fun, it's playful.
And clever.
Yes. Take a quick look on the inside of this thing. I don't know if there's too much worth mentioning here. The Marvel UK stuff is funny because, like, Death's Head 2 was obviously their big breakout hit. They did a lot of these, like, death, whatever they can put death in front of for a for knockoff. This is their X books are death.
And it goes to show you, like, there's the creative people and the bean counters are two very, like, they need the creatives very, very much. And it was Liam Sharp we had to thank for the Death's Head 2. So it's like they don't get it. They think that, like, well, we'll just do like some cybernetic Death's Head 2 kind of guy. And it's like, no, it's Liam Sharp who was the X factor there. Yeah,
for sure. And another sign of the time, William Shatner comics.
Yeah, the cover artists was Steve Vance and Bill Morrison.
Nice tie-in ad there.
Vanguard 3, Joe Madureira on art duties there, man. And this may have been one of the earliest Joe Mad pieces I've seen, to be honest. And I've seen it as an ad in probably a Savage Dragon or something.
Yeah, these are both Savage Dragon family. This is Image kind of year 2 as well, and they're expanding. You know, all of these books now are spinning out into their families of books.
I was really into the way Mad drew hands, and Savage Dragon existed long enough where we got to see bad fin treatments, but Joe Mad could do a pretty good one.
Letter from our publisher, Gareb Shamus, talking about 2 things here of importance. One, going to England for a convention, so he names drops some of the artists and cartoonists from that: Glenn Fabry, Alan Davis, Dave Gibbons, Simon Bisley. And then the other piece of important news is the softball team.
See, Kim, want to thank you for that super chat, man. Frush30, thanks again for that super chat. I'm going to just interject whenever the Homeboys pop went out.
Yeah, and by the way, Joe Quesada playing third base for the Wizard home team.
That was a more svelte, athletic Joe Quesada, man.
It's funny because they won. You know, they're doing well, but they're, I guess the rematch, I think they played against Diamond, maybe, was their opponents. Anyway, the rematch is going to be in bowling, and I think there's a future issue of Wizard where you can like win a trip to go bowling with Joe Quesada. So he's a ringer, man.
I'm surprised that he's going to sacrifice his wrist health for trying to get a good curveball down the alley there. My wrist hurts just thinking about it.
Magic words, letters that stand out this issue. Not too many. This one is written by Len Kaminsky, who was writing Iron Man at the time.
Yeah.
And I thought this was a really smart play. Iron Man is not a book we've heard much about in Wizard. It's not an X book. It's not an Image book. It's just not that popular. So why not write to this popular magazine? There's been an ongoing feud between X-Men and Iron Man. Take advantage of that. You know, it's probably the one place Iron Man can look cool in this era in Wizard. And I think it's a real smart move. You know, like we always talk about jobbers or whatever and guys trying to sell their books. This is a smart way to try to sell your book.
Yeah, he had some relationship with Wizard from some earlier interviews about Morbius, cutting a little bit of promos back and forth with, was it Ron Wagner?
Yeah, that wasn't as good. That wasn't as successful. But it's smart, you know, it's a smart, being aware of what's going on in the industry and how you as a creator could take advantage of that and try to bend it to help you. There's another letter, and it's from a shop owner, and he's complaining about how the people that are coming into his shop, they don't know Jack Kirby and they don't know Watchmen. And that's pretty unbelievable. Watchmen is only, 6 or 7 years old at this point.
I agree with you, Jim. But when that movie came out, I was still going to the the Watchmen movie. When that thing came out, I was still going to the comic shop every Wednesday. And I was astounded by the people who I've known and seen every Wednesday at the comic shop with Watchmen books in their hands in the checkout aisle, in the checkout line, and just in conversation. Dude, I've known you for 20 years and you never read Watchmen? No, it's always on my to-read list, man. So we can't take for granted that everybody's checked it out.
I guess so.
Jay McQuarrie shouts, homeboy. Thanks for that super chat.
Always a highlight of Wizard, of course, is letter art. Pretty nice Sandman here.
Yeah, I agree. Probably.
For all the Keith Giffen, Simon Bisley, Lobo Trencher fans, this is probably your apex. Lobo versus Trencher envelope art.
Let me ask you, Jimmy, did you ever do a piece of envelope art for anything?
I think I did. I don't know if it was ever for a Wizard magazine, but envelope art was something a few artists I knew would trade a little bit, so I probably did a little ones. And every now and then I'll do a sketch on an order. I would do that in the past, but just like a little head sketch. Nothing quite this elaborate.
Yeah. Crazy.
And Lady Death showing up, by the way.
Greg G, thanks for that super chat, Holmes.
It'll be fun to track Lady Death as she works her way from the lowly envelope to basically the cover, right?
I mean, top 10 book. Top 10 book, goddamn.
A genre, I suppose.
That's for goddamn sure, dude. Wizard News. The death of Sandman. It seems every dozen issues or so, we got to have another article about when Sandman is going to end. I guess it was understood by most people out there, man, that Neil Gaiman is a special quantity. You're not going to be able to keep that energy up in the same form and fashion once he leaves. So he's going to be the guy to end the series. This time, the series is up to about issue 57. And they're asking those questions. When's it going to end? When's it going to end? Neil Gaiman at this point, he's enough of a veteran that he just is like, I'm not going to mention that, because then that becomes the name, that becomes the article, and then everybody expects the thing to end soon, and that isn't necessarily the case.
Going through these Wizards, I've been surprised by the timeline of Sandman. Sandman was such a big book for me in the late 90s. That was when I was in college, and it felt like if I met anyone in college that read comics, Sandman was the book that they read. Sandman would have been over like the regular series at that point. So it's been weird going through here and realizing like my timeline for Sandman's at least a few years like wrong. Basically, I was on the timeline of the Sandman trades.
I think it did well, like as a regular comic series, but man, it certainly is a perennial seller, of course, and that's most of the people who've read the thing. They were keeping up with trades, and I followed that trajectory. I didn't read the single issues. I don't know that I've ever even seen a single issue of Sandman in my life. Just picked up the trades. 10 books, easy peasy.
So Image Goes Cosmic. This is a list of titles that Image is planning to do that are, I guess, outer space themed. It seems like they try to do stuff together the way, Marvel or someone would do a crossover. So they announced this stuff together. The Knight, Warlocks, Weapon Zero, and Galactic Legion. I don't think Warlocks ever came out. Weapon Zero did come out. Galactic Legion I don't think ever came out. And the Knight may have come out. So it sounds good in the press release, but the reality is so much different.
When you're in the comic book game, or put it this way, because it works in almost every creative medium, the announcement is a very fun part of the job. You get a lot of people talking to you, a lot of press happens. It's a good excuse for procrastination because you're still being productive, even though you're talking with these people. But one can get addicted to the press release part, the announcement part of the process. But then you got to go home and sling some ink, man, and make some fucking books.
It does take a long time. So here's something. I brought a couple books we can look at. Black Ball Comics debuts. Black Ball is going to become a comic book publisher, kind of briefly. One name associated is Keith Giffen's Trencher. But there's some kind of big people involved with this, at least people I'm fans of, such as Simon Bisley, Kevin O'Neill. So one book they announced is Radical Dreamer. This is going to be by Mark Wheatley. And the noteworthy part here is the gimmick of how it's produced. So regular comic on the stands, but whenever you read it, it unfolds into like a giant poster. It's comics, like it's readable like comics and panels. And this is a 0 issue. So like the regular issues, I think you wouldn't get this. I think you would get more comics in a regular issue. And it ran several issues. But this is the 90s when, like you've got to try to stand out on the stand. So interesting format on that one. And then another comic that they mention here, Monster Massacre. And the reason this is noteworthy for, I think, us and Kayfabers, there's some cool stuff. Kevin O'Neill, awesome. John Payne. But this is one of the few color works of James O'Barr.
Oh, interesting. Let's pull that out.
Very well-known outlaw cartoonist, and almost all of his stuff is black and white. So
I think I saw a little melting pot.
A little bit of melting pot, but here we go. This is the James O'Barr color piece. And it's a substantial story. I think it's around 14 pages or so. Obviously James O'Barr, it's just you're seeing him doing painted comics.
If I got my James O'Barr characters correct, it looks like the same guys from Zeitgeist.
the many reprinted Zeitgeist chapter. This guy doesn't look like Zeitgeist. Some kind of reptile monster. It's interesting. I always like seeing these guys who work in different media going from something like pen and ink to going to painting because it still looks like them.
His covers were painted, and I think those, when they first came out with Crow, in fact, even in the first issue of Caliber Comics Presents or whatever it was, call it Caliber Presents, the back cover was done by James O'Barr, and it was a Crow piece portrait, and it was very attractive. I could easily see somebody buying this book, like, to see that guy who did that cover. What the heck did he do on the inside of that thing, man? So he could sling some paint. Want to shout out to Adam Lore for that super chat too. Here's a good piece right here, man. From Bedrock, from Bedrock to Badrock. We can't go an issue without talking about the great Rob Liefeld, man. So these guys have popular books out, and everybody's coming a calling, man. Probably there'll be Matchbox cars from some people. There's going to be toys from other people. And Rob is down with going into the Hollywood game, or TV in particular. So you can't have a character called Bedrock. He made the choice. Like, I always thought maybe Hanna-Barbera might have like sent him a cease and desist and was like, you can no longer call that character Bedrock. But he decided to take a proactive step. At least that's what the article says, man. He's going to be looking for some opportunities in animation. So let's get the ducks in a row. Change a vowel or two so that we don't even attract any attention from rival.
I think Badrock's a big improvement.
I do too.
That's a really, it's weird. You know, like it sounds good for a cartoon character and it makes sense with the way that guy looks. Works for me. Penthouse Comics is announced. I think we'll see more Penthouse Comics, especially as we get into some of the...
Hey guys, can you hear us? Okay, we're going to pop right back in again. Many apologies.